story, and
Yeah.
So
That's what I've heard. So
mm,
definitely interesting to see what people think.
yeah.
Were the New Frontier books from like the late '90s? Do I remember that correctly? Was it like
I think someone pointed out it was 97. I think, but
'97? Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't
I remember them.
checked.
I remember them coming out and then being kind of a big deal as like a. I think it was the first time that they did like a series that wasn't based on one of the shows, like a fresh crew, different story.
Yeah.
Cool. With that, we are live for episode 5 of Course Heading. I figured I'd just let you guys go a little bit, get a little intro into our guest. Rob has a Trek book club, but I'll let Rob do the talking on that. So, Rob, Bill, how you guys doing this morning? Or afternoon, I guess.
Yeah, afternoon for me.
Yeah.
Afternoon for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
doing well.
Perfect. Rob, just do a quick overview if, let's say, our viewers live under a rock somewhere and haven't heard about Trek Book Club.
Yeah, so I run a Trek Book Clubs on Twitter. So you can find it at Trek Book Club. So we go away and we read a different Star Trek book each month, and then we come back and discuss it on Twitter. So this month this weekend we're discussing first 4 books from the New Frontier universe. So yeah, it's quite an interesting one because I think it's the first time Star Trek books went outside of the characters that we know. So not TNG, not DS9, not Voyager, not completely new characters. And we still get some of the old characters, minor characters that we've seen in TNG. But yeah, so if you're interested, come and join in the discussion.
Yep. Perfect.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. And I think if people don't know, this was kind of set up perfectly because Bill's kind of a little bit outnumbered right now because there's 2 Voyager guys here and then there's Bill. So I think this is perfect, kind of lines up to talk about this episode, episode 5 of Star Trek Picard. So I think we should just jump right into it.
First of all, I am a Voyager guy. maybe it might not be my
honorary Voyager guy.
But
no, everyone's a Voyager guy. Yeah.
Yes. Indeed.
Yep.
But yeah, let's dive right in.
Who wants to go first?
I'm anxious to hear. We asked Ian last week, Rob, when did you watch it? How did you watch it? Did you watch it like late at night, middle of the night when it presumably went live for you guys? Like, what was your experience watching it for the first time? This episode.
So, the first few episodes I didn't watch as they came out on Amazon Prime. They come out on Amazon Prime in the UK, and they come out around about 11 o'clock on Thursday night. So the first few episodes I watched on the Friday, so I waited until I came home from work and I could sit down and give it my full attention. But that didn't last long. I can't wait. Now, so for episode 5, I watched it as soon as it dropped. I was on Amazon Prime at 10:58, like hitting refresh.
F5, yeah.
Yeah. So I watched it as it dropped on Thursday night, and I watched it on my own, which sadly I don't know a lot of people that that live near me are in Star Trek.
Sure.
So I watched it on my own, but it never feels like you're watching on your own because you can get straight on Twitter and talk about it.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yep.
But it was sadly I stupidly went on Twitter. See, for us in the UK, anywhere that's not in America, it's really difficult to avoid spoilers.
Yeah.
Really, really difficult. I went on Twitter and saw a spoiler. Literally the first. I knew what happened in the first 5 minutes.
In the opening.
But it didn't spoil it too much. I was still, I was, yeah, but it would have had more of an impact if I hadn't seen the spoiler.
Right.
Heather made a great. She tweeted about how you can turn off certain hashtags. It's not going to, filter out all the spoilers, but you can turn off like Star Trek Discovery, but Star Trek Picard and whatever else. So I think maybe do that next time because.
Well, it definitely helps to do that, but you're counting on others to be
exactly
to be using the hashtags
fully
appropriately and not just be blurting out, "Oh my God, this happened," without. There's a definite danger to just having a presence on Twitter before you see it. I feel that at work, like I do it like you were doing it before, Rob. The episodes premiere here, like for me, on the East Coast of the United States at like 2:00 in the morning, Wednesday night into Thursday morning. So I work a regular job, so I can't stay up that late. So I go to work and then sit around all day, do my job, and then as soon as I come home, I like pretty much watch it right away. So while I'm sitting at work, it's extremely tempting to, just be on Twitter because I'm on Twitter all the time. But it's a hazardous, it's a risk.
Playing with fire.
Yeah, you never know.
Yep.
Yeah, because there are people like Dan who live on the West Coast who have seen the episode for hours before I have.
Yeah.
Dan, of course, he respects the spoiler code and doesn't tell me anything.
I did text you this time, but I
no.
Yeah, but I didn't spoil anything.
But no spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is a challenge with this world we live in now to experience these shows and try to stay as clean as possible before you get a chance to watch.
When you think back to when I was watching Voyager and DS9 when it aired, none of this existed.
Never.
You didn't have Twitter or Facebook or
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it was never a problem before. But this is a brave new world we live in now with social media. But so I'm curious. Now we've kind of covered like how we watched it. What were your overall impressions? This is I'll start off by real quick just saying, in my experience, just consuming people's reactions on social media, Twitter, Facebook, message boards. This is a divisive episode. This is an episode that brings out some strong feelings in people on both sides of the spectrum. So I'm very eager to hear overall impressions and just your general like first reactions to it, given the polarizing nature of it. So, Rob, since you're our guest,
yeah, I'll let Rob go first.
I'm very eager to hear. Like, what was your general takeaway?
I didn't really get I didn't really even think of the outrage that people might have about the, gratuitous violence the first couple of minutes. Until it wasn't until I watched the episode, then went on Twitter and thought, oh yeah, actually I can see how some people might think that might have been a bit unnecessary. I didn't think that, and I can totally see why they included it. And I think I've seen discussions on Facebook where the writers have responded and explained why they include that scene. But personally, as a big Voyager fan, Voyager's my favourite Star Trek series. Of course, I love this episode. It has
yes.
It's got 7 of 9. Even though only briefly it had Icheb, that was I didn't expect that coming at all. It was cool to see him grown up, and he's in Starfleet. Which I thought was nice because at the end of Voyager we see Icheb. That's what he wants to do. He wants to join Starfleet. So it's nice that we see he fulfilled his wish. Obviously, there's a downside to that. But otherwise, it was. I thought the Free Cloud, the city that they were in with the going into the casino and the bar. I thought that was really cool. The costume. I thought it was almost like a bit like, obviously not the beginning and not the end, but in the middle, it was kind of like a comedy episode. It was kind of a bit of fun.
Might have lost Rob, at least temporarily.
Oh, yeah, he's back. He's back.
Okay.
I can. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah. We can hear you, but it's your video feed's still frozen. Just keep going though.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll
yeah. So
catch
some
up.
people were saying.
There we go.
We're good.
Some people were saying it's been a bit slow, but you cannot say that about this episode. There was so much action. The plot was carried forward and furthered. Yeah, it was action packed. There was so much happening. Yeah, it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. It was a really solid, good episode. In fact, I'd probably go so far as to say this is, if not the best episode so far, it's definitely up there.
Interesting. Great. What about you, Daniel?
I wholeheartedly echo what Rob just said. My judgment may be clouded because of some of the things that transpired in that episode. The Voyager theme, it made me tear up. I was tearing up, and that whole scene in the transporter room, so powerful. The bourbon straight up was like echoing Coffee Black to me. I was just like, oh my gosh, oh, I love that. Obviously there was some cheese too. I'm not sure, but that's Voyager too. Like there's some cheese with, but also, yeah. I mean, I see it on at least people that I follow and kind of take attention to and see their opinions really have it middle of the road. To me, at first when I watched it, I was like, "This is the best episode. This is the best episode of Picard I just watched." But now I think it's maybe 2-3 for me because I think still the pilot is still up there. But I think it's still really strong because I think it's a fun away mission that just I think I thought it was great, and I don't know what else to say because I feel like you can't win. People were saying last week, "Oh, this is too slow." Then we get this episode, a fun, away mission episode. They got to get into costume. Like there's great, costume design. There's humor, and then they pull back. Whoa, just too much. Over the top. It's just a little bit frustrating for that. And I get there's some things about the episode that really don't work for me. The beginning, there was a lot of, it was like, this is going pretty fast and a lot of violence, and I don't understand why she had to kill him. But yeah,
the Seven having to,
because he just had, I didn't quite understand the extent of his injuries. But it was really an emotional scene, so I don't fault it for that. I just think the eye is, we can, it's 20, whatever century, you can fix an eye. Yeah. But I get the feeling that maybe he had some more internal stuff going on than just the eye.
I mean, I didn't notice this. I think it was some people over at Trek FM had commented on it. That there was the continuity between, when the surgeon says, "Where's your cortical node, buddy?"
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he hasn't got one because he gave it to Seven, and I thought that was
an
she couldn't find it.
Yeah.
Because it's not there. So I like the fact that
that's great.
There were so many nods to previous episodes and previous series. In this episode.
Yeah, it's clearly an episode that could have only been written by Buyer, because there are so many little touches like that it's got to be, it has to have come from somebody who loves and really, really knows the Voyager continuity, the Voyager story, the way it capitalizes on the Voyager Icheb 7 of 9 whole history. That not just any old writer could have done that. So Kirsten Dyer's presence is definitely strongly felt here.
Your thoughts?
I mean, do you have more, Dan?
No, we'll talk about more things specifically during the episode and then the ending, obviously. But just go.
Yeah, I echo a lot of what you think. I think it's really strong. I think it felt, we've talked ad nauseum the last 4 weeks about how this show has up till this point almost been impossible to like I know I just did it and Jim from Trek Ranks just did it, but like to rank episodes or to like pick apart, they're all true, but they're all the episodes are so built like chapters in a novel, and it's so serialized that it's very difficult to like differentiate the episodes. But this one felt a little bit more episodic, a little bit more distinctive. It felt, Rob, I think you said it, like the plot clearly moved forward. Like they went and did something. Mm-hmm. Not to say that things weren't happening in the last 4 episodes. Things were certainly happening, and we were taking steps forward. But this felt like such a jolt forward, where such clear things happen beginning, middle to end in this episode specifically. So I appreciated that. I felt like that was a good change for the show. I felt like it was needed. The opening with each ep was certainly surprising. I didn't, jarring, like you, Rob, said, sure. Jarring. I had no idea that each ep was going to be in it. I had no idea that they were going to do that to him. In terms of the violence of it, I thought Michael Chabon's explanation that you referenced, Rob, was I hear what he's saying. This sequence at the beginning of this episode has to tell us why Seven is where she is and why Seven could make the choice she makes at the end of that episode. To ultimately do what she does. Like seeing this is the way to kind of sell the shift in her character and the arc that she's kind of undergone since the last time we saw her in Voyager up till now. So it had to be jarring and make a big impression. So I get the need to take a step forward and do a little bit more on the violence end of things. But as somebody who struggles with gore and if I'm watching sporting events and I see an injury maybe happen, like I think it might lead to an injury, I turn my head. I don't like watching football players hurt their knee. Like I'm very sensitive to that stuff. So yeah, for somebody like me, I was like, oh my gosh, I had to look away. So it really took me back. But I certainly get why it's there, and I think it's necessary. You can argue degrees. Maybe they could have pulled it back a little bit. The couple shots of like the eye physically coming out and like cutting the cord like that. That's that's a little bit too much. Maybe some of that stuff could have been numbed out a little bit, but it certainly made it did its job as far as like leaving a lasting impression and telling us why Seven is where she is emotionally. But like you guys said, just the presence of the Voyager stuff, seeing 7 of 9 again, seeing Jerry Ryan's performance, which I think is perfectly pitched, like exactly 7 of 9, but evolved 7 of 9. Like she has changed in some ways. She's become more human on some levels, but she's still struggling with a lot of the same things. The choice she sort of makes at the end is very in step with choices she made in Voyager that were counter to what Captain Janeway wanted her to do. Starfleet would have told her to do. There are things in episodes like Prey where she makes choices that Starfleet wouldn't necessarily make. Yeah. So to me, that's consistent and totally in line with what kind of person she is and the kinds of struggles she has. So I love the 7 stuff. And Ian in the chat just referenced the Rafi storyline. I personally really loved that. That's like a huge calling card for this episode for me. I don't mean to like jump this whole conversation to that specific thing. We can talk about anything, but the Rafi part of that story, the Rafi character to me like speaks to something that we haven't gotten a lot of. Somebody who's dealing with overcoming addiction and fighting that battle. Like there hasn't been a lot of that in Star Trek. There hasn't been a specific window for people that have that struggle to latch onto a specific character, like a lot of other challenges that people deal with have. So I'm appreciative that Rafi is kind of providing that window for folks. I think that's really well done, and I love the performance of that actress, Michelle Hurd. I thought that scene with her son was really, really strong. So that worked for me. I don't know how it worked for you guys. I don't work for others out there in the fandom, but for me, that was actually a big highlight.
Yeah, I think just that whole thing was strong as well. I think anytime we can see not an atypical straight and narrow Starfleet officer or ex-Starfleet officer, I'm down with, because it's something that we haven't explored, and we've seen so many straight-laced, typical Starfleet officers, career officers, but now we're seeing kind of the other side of the coin, so it's nice and refreshing to see that. So,
agreed.
Yeah.
What did you think, Rob, of the Rafi?
Up until this episode, not that I didn't like her. I do like her. She's a good character. I found her quite jarring and quite passive aggressive. And this, it gave you the story to why she's like that, why she's damaged.
Sure.
It gave much more background to her character. Went deeper into her story, so it made me appreciate her character much more. Yeah.
For sure. I think. I mean, up until that point, up until that sequence and that sort of reveal that she has the son that she's estranged from because of her battles and addiction, struggles. I think everybody kind of presumed that she's the way she is because she lost her career and, the Picard choice, railroaded where she was heading in her Starfleet career. And that's certainly still an element. I think that's
for
part of, but it's not as simple as just that. There's other things like all of us have, on the surface, if you work with somebody or you had a relationship with somebody in the past, you think like the full extent of why this person is the way they are, but there's always other layers to what's got that person to where they are. It's the Starfleet stuff that Picard knows about, and on top of that, she's got this other whole element of her life that isn't like out in the open for people that she's worked with in the past to know about, that also has sort of damaged her and has made her who she is. And these are the struggles she's kind of battling through. So I really like that. I thought that was a really nice reveal. I thought she played it really well. I thought the son was played really well by that actor. I don't know his name. I didn't look it up.
Yeah.
But that's a nice performance. I think the Romulan
looks Romulan
wife
yeah
is like it's the closest thing to like you could have plucked her directly out of
she just
Unification.
Yeah, she just walked off a TNG set, I think.
The costumes, the hair, the makeup, like it was like clear, like as close to exactly Michael Westmore Romulan as we've gotten.
Yeah.
And it's I love that. That entire scene worked for me.
Yeah. Just real quick back to the Raffi stuff. I got a feeling that maybe, I mean, I don't know if the addiction was drugs or whatever it was, but the addiction to me also could have been the conspiracy theorist in her. Like the son will be like, all right, well, what happened with the attack? And then she just goes kind of right back into it. So I think that was kind of part of it too. Like she was.
Yeah, well, that's. Yeah. I think she's in the. What's that? Go ahead, Rob.
I was going to say, it sounded like her son had a big, the issue he had is that she abandoned her family and was going after, spending way too much time and energy and focus on with Picard and trying to save Romulans. And, there's like you were saying, the conspiracy thing with trying to work out what was happening.
What the heck happened?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could see the guy's anger. Like, you would be angry if your mum just what seemed like going crazy, focusing on this attack and trying to come up with a reason for it when everybody else is saying this is why it happened.
Right.
I also love the kind of interaction when what are we gonna do with our stowaway, and they kind of know that what's going on, and then they got to go back to our quarters, and it's I like that little
for sure. I thought they handled that pretty well. They didn't make a big deal. I thought this was my favorite episode for that actress and that character to this point, for sure, because of the added layers, the added texture to who she is and why she is.
You said favorite. You said favorite and episode, so I'll take it in the same sentence.
Back to 7 of 9 real quick. I think we'd be remiss. I think Dan, you might have mentioned it. The other thing I'll say is if somebody put a phaser to my head and said, "What's the best thing you've seen in Star Trek Picard so far?" I think I would probably say Picard and Seven of Nine on the transporter pad talking about being pulled back from the collective and struggling to regain their humanity. Like, if that's not Star Trek, then I don't know. Like that if that isn't like that's something that 25 years of wishing to see things like that finally happening. That's the stuff dreams are made of for folks like us.
Yeah.
So I mean that's like the culmination of this whole concept coming together. That's the best thing for me that we've gotten in this series to this point, for my money.
I would echo that. But I also want to kind of bring up another point about Jerry Ryan's performance. It's so Janeway-esque, right? For better or for worse. If we look at the series finale, Endgame of Voyager, she just, beelines. Nothing can stop her. What happens in this episode? And we've seen the Janeway do that many times. When the crew's in danger, nothing is gonna stop her, right? It's the same thing with 7 of 9. Nothing is gonna stop her. I maybe thought, there's gonna be cordial. They're gonna go away. No, 7's coming back to finish the job. So I think that just that mentality to protect her own, I think is really reminiscent of Janeway. So yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
It's a way off basis, but that's what I got.
Yeah. I was thinking of Seven's in this. Is it the Fenris Rangers? That she's part of this group that these rogue vigilantes that are going around, helping people who haven't got anyone to help them because there's this power vacuum because the Romulans have gone, the Romulan Star Empire have gone, the Federation have kind of retreated a little bit, and that's something I could see Janeway doing that.
She did that.
I think about the episode The Void, when she's trying to help people, that's so. Yeah, I agree. I think some Janeway has rubbed off on 7.
Definitely, I would agree with that for sure. I think that, like you said, the Rangers are kind of doing what the Voyager was doing for a lot of that 7 years. Like, how many times did they find themselves in a position to have to fill a vacuum and set something right in some sort of dynamic? 7 clearly watched Janeway do that over and over again. And that makes sense that rubbed off on her, and that's the kind of place she would want to be. That's an existence she's comfortable with, because it's what she was, for all intents and purposes. That's what she grew up doing. Humanity, her childhood, her formative years were spent kind of living on the fringes and operating in this wild west of space, and that's what she ends up doing. So I think that's all kind of perfectly in line with what I can imagine 7 of 9 ending up doing.
Yeah. Where's Chakotay in all this? Did they end up together, or
Hey, who knows? Chakotay's he's another character that I could see.
He would fit
well
right in.
Rangers.
Yeah. He was the Maquis for a while. This is just like a rebranded Maquis almost, but I don't know. It seems like a little bit more successful.
In the Star Trek novels, as soon as they get back to Earth, 7 and 6, the moment they get back to Earth, it's like,
it's over, right?
Not going to happen. It's like the authors knew that we didn't like it, or not everybody, everybody liked it, and thought, right, let's get them away straight away.
Yeah, they didn't spend any time. They didn't waste any time to break that up.
Yeah.
I've heard that. But yeah, I mean, it certainly makes you hungry. Makes me hungry for finding out what happened to other Voyager, for sure. Just the taste of seeing 7 again, and hearing just like expositional dialogue from on the planet when she's talking about her history with Icheb and this woman who did the deed, and she ends up offing. Her just describing her relationship with Icheb as rescued by Voyager, like hearing Jerry Ryan say the word Voyager. He's like,
Even that, it's just like chills.
yes, seriously, check, exactly. That's just that one word alone is like enough from a B to a B plus. Like that's worth a nudge up. So little things like that are just like narcotics for people like us, I think. Yeah, really, really good stuff. So would we all agree basically that the before we kind of move into other aspects of the episode, the 7 of 9 portion of this, if you have anything else you want to share about 7 of 9's role in this, her scenes, her moments, like I'm curious to hear them now, but also to kind of sum up her involvement with the story. Successful, you want to see more from her, just overall thoughts on 7's involvement.
I think Jerry Ryan's performances didn't miss a step, like you said, Bill. So I think that's kind of a big thing too. But also, I would love to see like not as a series regular maybe, but maybe just a pop in here and there. I think would be pretty beneficial to. I mean, me obviously as a Voyager fan, but also for the show, because I feel like I don't want her to become a series regular and kind of like overshadow the. Really Picard, because it's about Picard, right? But it's also it's hard because it's also about the Borg and the Romulans, and I think you can't do that without 7 of 9, who's one of the most well-known Borgs in Star Trek. So, yeah, that's what I'll say for my closing thoughts on 7 of 9.
On 7.
Yeah.
What do you think, Rob?
I can't really add any more to that. I think you've summed it all up perfectly. She was great. I loved seeing where she is now, how she got there. I love the fact that, and I like the little bit moment between Raffi and where Raffi says to her, like, I really admire what you do, because there's no one out in the frontier place, upholding justice, trying to do the right thing, and 7's taking it, on her shoulders, and she's going to do it. If no one else.
Yeah.
I think that's really, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I can't argue with any of that.
Yep.
So we've kind of covered Raffi and her storyline. We've obviously covered 7, Icheb, that stuff. The reveal of Bruce Maddox. And that whole side to the story, with Dr. Girardi as well. I think the first thing chronologically in the episode, in that lane at least, is the reveal that Dr. Girardi and Bruce Maddox had a more intimate relationship. And kind of from there, anything that made an impression on you guys. Obviously, the ending is the deal to talk about. The sort of last thing we see, but that whole element of the storyline. What did you think, Rob, of the reintroduction of Bruce Maddox and her relationship with Dr. Girardi being fleshed out?
Yeah, if Dr. Girardi wasn't a central character before, she certainly is now. They dropped some bombs on us there, but I know that's at the end. We're not quite there yet. But it was interesting. Yeah, she's watching that video of her and Bruce Maddox, I think, baking.
That's a fun little thing. Because just keep going, Rob. Sorry. It's interesting. I had no idea that was going to come up. No, didn't suspect that at all. And I think them showing you that, the end scene even more impactful.
Sure.
Because they've got this history. They clearly love each other. I'm probably way off here, but the original actor who played Bruce Maddox, I guess is he still around? Is he too old?
Yeah, I think so.
He's alive. He is I think the head of the performing arts section of a university in California. But I think people have looked at his IMDb and he hasn't done much in the way of acting in quite some time. So it's all speculation at this point, but it could be that they asked him and he said no. It could be that because he's not an actor anymore. They may have wanted to get cast their own actor who could handle the the emotional stuff that this episode kind of calls for that character to do. So did the recasting bother either of you? Did the different actor jar you out of the episode? Did it bug you? What did you think of that? Since you brought it up, I'm curious.
I think they did a good job of recasting. I think if you look at him, because after the episode I went and looked up the original actor. They both definitely have long faces. I think the one thing that kind of was like, it's just the actor that played late Bruce Maddox, I forget his name. He has a curlier hair where the original Bruce Maddox guy is kind of straight, and he was really a clean cut looking officer. Sure. But I think they did a great job again. It didn't really bother me at all.
Yeah,
I could see that you could see that it's kind of Bruce Maddox.
Yeah, I believed it, and I think like the facial hair and the guy in hiding, want to be found, so it makes sense that he's, and even in the video, he's 20 years have passed, 25 years, whatever it's been since the Measure of Man, so he's aged and he's in a different point in his life, so the different appearance doesn't bother me so much, and I thought the actor was close enough. Like, and it's one episode from 25 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever it's been.
Yeah.
So, Rob, did it bother you? Do you have any thoughts on the recasting or? No,
I did exactly what you did, Dan. Straight afterwards, I was like, I'm just going to check just in case it wasn't.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it wasn't. So I went and Googled. No, it didn't bother me at all. Yeah, I thought the same as you. Like, the original one was very clean cut, very, almost like neat and anally retentive, is where this guy was a bit more disheveled, but you can kind of understand why he was a bit more disheveled.
Sure.
So he, beginning where he's with, is it Jazel? Is that her name? He said he owes, he can't pay her back. So what, was she financed? Was she financing something for him, or
an army? I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. There's a lot. There's so many questions with things like that, like with the whole Bruce Maddox stuff. Like, there's so much history to it that I don't think we know yet, or hopefully we find out some of it at least. But you're right. There was a line that kind of implies a history there, or some sort of intertwining between those two parties. But I didn't come away with any kind of like firm idea of what the nature of it was.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's definitely seems to be going down the route. I think we discussed when I was in the chat. I think it was last week. The whole, kind of like undiscovered country kind of feeling with the Federation and the Romulans conspiring. They're both involved.
Seems like that. Yeah.
There's, political intrigue.
Yeah. Something has pulled the Tal Shiar and the Zat Vash, or whatever the is it the Zat Vash, the
which they haven't
layer
haven't mentioned that. It's just been
that one episode,
Tal Shiar. So I don't know if what happened there, but I don't know.
Yeah, something clearly has, like you said, Rob, like kind of pulled. It seems like Romulan intelligence, like the inner workings of Romulan intelligence apparatus with Starfleet security, and kind of put them in league for good or bad.
I wonder.
Probably bad.
I've got a theory, and
Sure.
I'm terrible.
I
am terrible at theory, so this is probably like way off the mark. But this is kind of jumping the gun a bit to the end.
Let's just do it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, for sure.
But you see, when Picard's talking to Maddox in the sickbay area, she's kind of listening in the background, and she says, I'd written it down what she says because I was trying to make sense. When she then kind of effectively pulls the plug,
yeah,
which we just got this character and now you're getting rid of him. And she says, I wish you knew what I know. And then she says, I wish I didn't know what I know. I wish they hadn't shown me. So I was wondering at the I can't remember which episode it was now when Admiral O
Commodore
goes to
O.
The sunglasses episode.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
When she goes to the Daystrom Institute and meets Dr. Girardi, and she asks her, and I think the camera kind of cuts when she's, they talk.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder whether maybe as Admiral O, like, kind of shown her something, like that tried to convinced her, persuaded her to join her cause. She doesn't want to, but she realizes she has to. So maybe they have to get rid of the synths. Maybe she's shown them what Soji is capable of, who she really is. Because you can see in Dr. Girardi, she doesn't want to kill Maddox because she's crying while she's doing it.
Sure.
She realizes she has to. So I thought it was interesting what she said when she was doing it. I thought I'd be interested to hear.
Yeah, I had an interesting side conversation off this on the Discord server with the Trek Live Discord server with Dom Paris, and we were just talking about the episode the night it came out, and he said something that I agree with. That line of dialogue, Rob, that you talked about. I wish I didn't know what they showed me, or something along those lines. I wish they didn't show me. It kind of implies counter to what I 2 episodes ago I would have said, obviously mind melded with her, sort of did some sort of shenanigans to make her some sort of a sleeper agent, or operating against her own will to do something, or be a plan, or be a mole, or they're monitoring the situation through her somehow. But that line of dialogue indicates something more truthful about the whole thing. Like, Girardi knows something was shared with her that makes Girardi independently choose to put a stop to something, or to get involved. I don't think it's as simple and as cliche, to be honest, as
she's
at this point in Star Trek, mind control. Like, she's being manipulated by somehow. Like, I think it's something more complicated than that. I think you're right, Rob, that something was revealed to Girardi that has alarmed the point where she feels like she has one choice to make here, which I think is interesting. It makes it more intriguing to find out because this is all a mystery. We don't. There's so much we don't know about the nature of Dodge and Soji is, and what the involvement with the Borg is, and all that stuff. The Romulans, like, there's so many elements together yet, and seeing Girardi choose to do what she did with information that we don't know yet raises the stakes, and I think adds a sense of urgency to, like, what is this? Like, what's happening behind the scenes that we don't know about?
Yeah, I feel like when she was crying watching the video, I was like, oh, something's bad's gonna happen. I knew this was coming. But we talked about this a couple weeks ago. We didn't trust her. We were like speculating. Well, I don't think, maybe she's bad, maybe she's good, I remember saying that and talking about that. If we didn't know she was good or bad, look what happened. Maddox is dead.
Right. It's the name of the game with this show is building intrigue and, like, slow reveal of a mystery. Discovery, like we talked about, I think last week and the week before that, and maybe even the week before that. Discovery certainly to a degree does some of that. The Red Angel, the who's Gabriel Lorca, like the shades of gray that are slowly kind of pulled back and revealed over the course of Discovery. This has taken it to a whole new level. This is an even more extreme example of like long form storytelling with the slow reveal of a mystery, and us being right there along with Jean-Luc Picard, no captain, no admiral at this point. Untangling this mystery. We know what he knows. Like, there's a whole lot of stuff in the dark still for us and the characters.
But I feel like the more we untangle, the more it gets even more muddy and then more tangled. Because I feel like it's one question gets answered, then 2 pop up. I think that's the beauty of this show right now, like you said, Bill.
Yeah. Yep. Ian asked the question, we need to know the deal with money in this show. We need to know the deal with money in Star Trek whole. I mean, we could go on a whole spiel about the different ways the economy of the future is kind of portrayed over the course of Star Trek's history, and Picard is no different. Paying off people, financial entanglements, like you even said, Rob, with Maddox and that other organization. Like, there's obviously some financial element somewhere in history there. But kind of along with those lines, obviously talk Twitter, Trek Core, and all these different ways to review the episode and talk about things. There's obviously a lot of little nods on Stardust City, with Quark's bar. Apparently Quark has franchised his bar, which is actually kind of perfect. It makes a lot of sense. Seems like something he would do.
Yeah.
And Mr. Mott's haircuttery.
Mr. Mott.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of cool little references there. Quark's name dropped in the episode as somebody who's done business with shady characters before. Breen.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of cool. We kind of alluded to it in the beginning of the episode here, talking about the episode. This is an episode with a lot of references, a lot of continuity porn stuff.
Yeah.
Those are more examples of that. Any other things you noticed, Rob, like that Easter egg kind of things that maybe we haven't talked about that either one of you want to point out? And I don't know.
I'm usually really bad at spotting things like as soon as we got that aerial shot of the city, I noticed it straight away. I was really shocked at myself.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you've got your Mr. Mott's hair emporium.
Yeah.
There was, I think, to the left there was a little little neon Darbo table sign.
Wow.
And I think there was also next to by the Quark's bar bit, there was, I think, I can't remember the phrase, but it's some sort of phrase, I think, that's in the
what's yours is mine.
Yes. Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Spent on a rule of acquisition.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I know some people don't like excessive references.
Nah, they don't bother me. Like and they make sense. Like Mott's is a different. Mott's is did Mr. Mott really end up there? I don't know, but I mean, obviously he did. But the Quark thing makes perfect sense to me. Like, it makes perfect sense that Quark would come up with some sort of way to franchise his bar, and
it fits.
They're scattered throughout the shady parts of the galaxy. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. To me.
But I mean,
I know they're not, but I love those little holograms that pop, that little advertisement holograms that pop up.
Little ads. Yeah.
And poor Elm was like, why didn't I get one?
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of his nice little moment in the episode. I am eager. We obviously absolute candor, but he clearly, I think, of the main cast, had the least to do this week. But I'm sure he's got more. I
feel like he was just a source of comedic relief, or not comedic relief, but Star Trek comedy a little bit. Kind of
fish out of water stuff.
I love that moment where he was really naive. He showed you how naive he was, how innocent he was. Where he realizes, you're all lying. You're pretending. I get it now. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that on the Discord server a little bit. That's to me he's a little bit like early Data-esque when he was a little bit naive.
Yeah.
Early Data, I guess.
For sure. Very much so.
Yeah.
I love going back to like Free Cloud and the city.
Yeah.
I love the feel of it. How it, there's lots going on, like flashing light. I love the bar. It reminded me, it was kind of like a bit of a jazzed up, more modern version of Mos Eisley.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely some Mos Eisley. But even places in Star Trek, like the bar in is it Unification Part 1, where the hefty Ferengi is there, and it's like this really sleazy place. And Gambit, I think there's some really sleazy bar places that they kind of end up in.
Where there's that woman that's smoking in Riker Place. And this episode's got
suck salt.
Yeah.
Yeah, there have been places. Yeah, there have been places like that I think, given the production limitations that they had in the 90s, like they did what they could to create these like really dirty, skeevy places that, upstanding citizens would not end up most likely. But this is the modern budget and the production values that they're capable of now really got to take that idea and play it up. And I feel like we've been to places like that before. We had, not to that grand scale on the production side of things, but Star Trek's full of, little bars that are not full of upstanding citizens.
Yes.
And we've got to talk about Picard and his outfit.
Oh, the eye patch! Come on, that's awesome.
The eye patch.
I think the costume design in this episode was cool.
You see French accent, and it was brilliant.
Ian mentioned the French accent in the comments in the chat. He really liked Picard's over the top French accent, and like that. I feel like that stuff bothered some. The over the topness, the unabashed, like just kind of embracing the weird. But it to me, like it was in keeping with like old Black episode. Like, is it really any more outlandish than like Cupid, where they're running around in tights and playing out Robin Hood? Like Star Trek's been down this road before. Like this is like Star Trek's not above going to some silly places and putting silly costumes on people. There are countless examples through all the shows. I think where they've played this stuff. So it didn't bother me at all. And Picard playing along to me it makes sense. Like to me, kind of going hand in hand with that. I'm going to go off on like a little bit of a tangent here. There's a lot of talk about, I don't know how you guys feel about this. Raffi referring to Picard as JL, like that casual, more on a level interaction that she had with him and had with him even before this, like when they were still both officers.
Yeah.
And to me, the reason that doesn't bother me is I feel like when people say Picard would never allow that and wouldn't embrace that kind of relationship with an officer, I think people are thinking of Picard in like mid-season TNG. But for my money, Picard's whole arc is a journey to get to the end of All Good Things, where he sits down at the poker table with his crew and realizes that's his family, and that he can have a more down-to-earth, familial relationship with his officers. And I think that arc is even more. I think you see that even furthered in Insurrection, with interactions with his crew in that, and then in Nemesis, he's the best man at Wrecker's wedding. He gives a very casual speech. He's very loosey-goosey with his crew there, I think, in the part of that movie. So I think having that relationship with his first officer in Raffi is in keeping with the sort of development that Picard took from his experience on the Enterprise D with his crew on that ship. I think if he was super rigid and not, I don't know. It feels natural to me.
It does.
Looking at it as Picard's overall journey from Encounter Farpoint to All Good Things and then through the TNG movie. And then that kind of extends itself to, he'll play along. Like he's a looser guy now. He's not who he was.
It's been 20 years.
Right. Yeah. And I think his journey has been one of finding a comfort zone and not being the all business, rigid, inaccessible person that you see in Encounter Farpoint. I think.
And not everyone has to call him Picard. Like, but Crusher said Jean-Luc. Like it's
right.
I don't see it. I see it's definitely an extension of this arc that we've been weaving through, like Bill said. So I don't see it at all. I don't mind it.
And
I love it actually.
With the French accent in this episode, is Picard in episodes like The Defector is teaching Data the art of performing acting. There are moments throughout TNG where he's mentoring Data in these things below performing. On the holodeck, he played Dixon Hill. Like he's
got some experience, and
he's done these things.
The outlandish and over the top just plays into this over the top bar that they even said like these type of people are like that. That's why the captain was dressed like that. He had smoking and drinking. That's how these people are.
Beaming down there, acting like ex-Starfleet officers walking around with phasers tucked in the belt. Yeah, all business is going to stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, I know.
Lives on what? It's so to me like there's none of that bothered me. That worked for me. Everything on the planet worked pretty well in my book.
Yeah. Yes. Anything else?
This is the first episode where we got none. The Borg Cube, no Soji, no Narek.
Yes.
Didn't cut to that at all. They were completely absent from this.
Which I'm fine with because I think it was a little bit drug out.
I think we talked about last week that I think people, and this is one thing I would tend to agree with actually, is I think I got to a point last week where I was like ready for that story to move forward and take another step instead of sort of treading over the same territory of Narek trying to get information through flirting and having
not
a relationship.
Getting it, and then her sister,
not getting it and getting yelled at by the sister. Yeah. Right. So like giving that some space and really dedicating the time to Picard and Seven and the crew coming together and having to do this task together and building their rapport as a crew, having to do a job together, I think is gonna pay off as this show progresses and moving forward, even in this season where this crew is going to have to operate together. So I appreciated the full emphasis on that element of the story and not diverting away for more of that stuff. And from the trailer for next week, it looks like we're going to get a whole of Borg Cube, Soji, Narek kind of stuff next week. So did it bother anybody else? Everybody good with they're not going to that story this week?
Yep.
No issue there.
I didn't even realize until you just said. I was like, oh yeah.
Oh wow. Cool.
You weren't.
No, that worked.
Yeah.
But maybe, like you say, that it's clearly going to be the focus for either the next episode or a future episode. They're going there. They know that Soji's on the artifact, so they're heading there. So
they're going there. Yeah. So I think the rest of the season we're going to get these two storylines kind of coming together finally.
Yeah.
Not so much cutting back and forth between them. They're going to be on the same playing field. But
back to the money real quick. Star Trek and money. That's doubled his fee. So I guess that kind of raised the stakes too. Like, hey, that's a big thing.
True.
Going into Romulan territory. So it definitely raises the stakes for next week. If
definitely.
Oh yeah, Ian makes a good.
Yes.
Will the EMH out Dr. Girardi?
Yeah, I wondered that. What's gonna happen?
What are they gonna do with the EMH?
Yeah.
Ian also says he didn't miss the cube this week, so I guess that
settles that.
Settles that exactly.
But we can we've seen EMH's their memory get erased, and then because remember the doctor had that thing with happen.
That's true. Does Dr. Girardi do a little memory wipe? She seems capable of that, perhaps.
She could even reprogram him, and he could end up working for her.
She could, yeah. She is an expert in, Android synthetic life, but she seems to know her way around a computer.
Yeah,
she's not entirely comfortable in space, but I don't get the impression that kind of work is beyond her capabilities.
Yeah.
So we'll see. They're gonna have to do something. That EMH clearly bore a witness to sort of what was happening there.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that'll be an element moving forward.
Yep.
Does everyone completely, kind of real quick to start wrapping up? Do we all agree that 7 of 9 will be back this season? Do you think that was the end of 7 of 9 in this season in this show, or is she definitely?
I can't tell.
Do you think we see her again?
It felt final because I don't know. Well, yeah, I don't know.
She does leave that calling card, like Ian said. She leaves a little business card.
I don't know whether I think she's going to come back or whether I want her to come back. I hope she comes back and comes to their rescue.
Sure.
Guns blazing.
Because it's hard because I feel like their paths cross because they were both kind of in that the storyline. They were both after more or less the same person or the same group. Now it's kind of tough to kind of see, but I mean, again, we've seen on IMDb, we talked about last week, that she's been credited in a few other episodes. So
she has, yeah.
I don't know.
IMDb is known to be not always the most reliable source.
Yeah, I know.
I think we should have enough people to keep us busy though, because I think, is it next week we get Troy and Riker?
I think either next week or the week after. I don't think they've totally nailed that down if it's 6 or 7, but I think. Yeah, so I think there's that coming too.
Remind me, how long is the season? 9, 10? 10.
We're halfway.
Okay.
We're at the halfway point. Yep.
Definitely feels like it's picked up its pace.
Yeah, like you said, Rob, I think this week was a big step. It felt like a big step forward, where some elements of this mystery sort of are coming to the forefront. Like we've gotten to Maddox, like we've accomplished something. We're on to the next part of the mission. The first step is finding Maddox and figuring out where this character is, Soji, and then going to get her. So we're through that, like, sort of first step.
Yep.
So.
All right, we're kind of at that hour mark. I think Bill and I's goal for the show is the 30-minute to 45 minutes, but there's no rules here, so we've
never had no rush.
We're breaking rules here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's tough not to do when you have so much. This episode in particular, there's so much meat on the bone with all the 7 of 9 stuff. And moving forward to the story, so it's a lot to talk about.
Yep. I think we all agree that there's not a lot of people we can trust in Star Trek Picard, but what you can trust is that the discussion will not stop here. We got a lot of content this weekend, not as much as last week, but we've got some good stuff lined up. We got Trek Live tomorrow, and then some more content, some more discussion having today. Bill, what are we doing today?
We're having one of our tonight, today, depending on where we are in the country.
After dark.
After dark, Trek After Dark, we call it. It's our Discord no live streaming hangout. If you're interested in playing some Star Trek trivia, maybe watching some episodes, just kind of casually talking about all Star Trek, including Picard, I'm sure it will be on people's minds. You can come, if you're not already a member of our Discord server, you can send me a DM on Twitter. I'll get you an invite. And about 6 o'clock Eastern time for you, Dan, would be 3 o'clock your time, and I think 11 o'clock your time, Rob. So if you're in the UK, 11 o'clock. On the west coast of the US, 3 o'clock. We'll be just kind of chatting away on the Discord server. So if you're interested in just kind of hanging out with other Star Trek, if you got nothing going on this fine Saturday, send me a DM on Twitter, and I'll make sure you get invited and come participate.
Yep. Yes, I my schedule today is a little bit up in the air, so we might have a little bit of pre-show before the actual. So I don't know.
Might start a little early.
But the hard start is for definitely that 6 range. So you guys know the real discussion doesn't have to stop here. We'll be back next week to talk about the next episode, episode 6. The title is, I don't know. I'll have to look that up. But it should be a fun time as always. Talking about Star Trek Picard this week. So, thanks for watching.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Rob. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Rob. Everyone in chat, definitely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate you, Ian. Yep.